So Mo Hijab got temporarily hitched. When the honeymoon was over, his bride got ditched. And now old Mo is covering his tracks. He should have thought twice before he dropped his slacks. But he's just imitating Muhammad, who did it himself. Whenever he wants one, he can take a girl off the shelf. Welcome to This Week in Jihad. We have with us tonight, as a special treat, the great David Wood.
Robert, these poems are starting to sound pretty Islamophobic. Just have to point that
out. What on earth could possibly have been Islamophobic about celebrating Mo Hijab's wedding?
That's a good point. That's a good point. That is. It's the beauty of Islam.
That's right. It is the...
What's wrong with you?
I put you put yourself higher, so I put myself higher so it would
Yeah,
match.
then I did it too.
So pretty soon only our necks will be showing, and that's that's what they want to cut anyway. So it'll give them a target to work towards.
That should be the show if we were gearing it just towards jihadis. It's just like all you see in shot are our throats.
Oh yes, oh yes.
These guys would be sitting there watching the show, fantasizing and stuff. Oh, imagine! Oh, it'll be so great! Oh, just think about what I could do with this. Hey,
You're
we should make
need a bigger knife.
We should make like an only jihadis show. It's all about like knives coming towards our neck. No, like a channel only jihadis. To make an entire channel, will become rich, and they have to pay tokens for how close the blade gets to our necks.
The Jihadi Fantasy Channel.
We'll be billionaires.
Yeah. Instead of super chats, you have strike the neck chats, and yeah, they depending on how much they pay. That's how close the knife gets. All right. It's a beautiful thing, Islam. It's a glorious religion. One of the great religions of the world, you know.
So beautiful.
Yes. Okay, so let's go straight to the jihad. This guy, see, he's got a sweet smile. He's got to be a nice guy. You can tell.
And a nice hat.
Nice hat. And what could be wrong with a guy like that? That is Zimnako Salah. That's his name, Zimnako Salah. And this is an interesting guy, David. I have not heard of a case like this. You know, we have a little problem on this program that so many stories are so much like all the other stories. And so it's like the same thing every week. These people got killed. Those people got killed. This guy got his head cut off. This infidel gave $1 billion to these jihadis. You know, it's same old thing. But in any case, this guy's a different story. This is a whole new thing. This is Zimnako.
Really new, something new.
It's something new. It's very exciting. This Zimnako Salah planted fake bombs in 4 churches in Arizona, California, and Colorado. Now, that is not so much new. We've had that kind of thing happen before. But Zimnako Salah, at the same time, was working on building his own IED. So he planted fake bombs in 4 churches while he's building a real bomb. You got to give this guy credit, because he was really thinking this through. That he's combining war is deceit with kill them wherever you find them. So we get a 2-for-1 on this. That first he plants 4 fake bombs in churches. Then, after he figures they're going to just say, oh, it's Zimnako Salah again, this must be another fake bomb, kaboom! And they're dead.
Yeah, I was thinking about that as you're sharing the story. Like, what's going on here? Are these sort of 2 separate but connected by the same guy things where, hey, I'm going to terrorize these people with fake bombs, and they're going to be terrified, and then I'll eventually get to a real bomb, Or, as you were just saying, is that, hey, if I start tossing these fake bombs around places, people are going to become more complacent. And then when they see a real bomb, they're going to think, oh, it's another fake bomb. And I'll actually be able to get more people because they won't be scared.
Yeah.
If it's the latter, that's a little creepier, because then you're thinking about someone who is thinking ahead very seriously to maximize casualties.
Yeah, we've seen so much ingenuity on the part of jihadis in how to kill. And I thought, when I saw this, this guy, he's brilliant in a demonic way. That he's going to make it seem as if the bomb is fake. And so probably even an alert, I think it's entirely reasonable to think that an alert went out to churches along the West Coast and in the West in general, saying there's been a rash of fake bombs in churches, so don't get alarmed.
Yep. Just continue with your service. If you see something that looks like a bomb, it's fake. Or at the very least, I mean, if you're looking at it, it's like, oh, I've heard about these fake bombs. You wouldn't necessarily be running for cover. So yeah. By the way, these are the guys who creep me out more, when it's the stupid guys who are like, you know what, I want to die for Allah. Let me go start asking people if they know where I can get a bomb, and then they get caught. Those are the guys who get caught very early on in the process, and so on, and so they don't actually do anything. The creepy guys are the ones who are extremely patient and who will wait a long time. So. No, I mean, like the perfect example here wasn't even a Muslim, was Anders Breivik. So, as we pointed out before, he started planning his attack in 1999, and it was many years later. But he's always just focused on carrying out that attack, plotting for years. Those are the creepy guys, because almost impossible to catch them. They're doing everything on their own by themselves, and very careful and methodical. And yeah. So anyway, want to see. Glad they caught this guy, because he seems to be one of the plotters. Not the best of plotters. That's Allah.
Right. Allah is the best of plotters. But this guy, you got to give him credit. Maybe he's the second best of plotters. Although, well, he got caught. So probably the top 10.
He's not that great. Yeah. He's smarter than your average guy that gets caught, but still dumb.
Yeah. He got caught. He's not a great jihadi. I mean, has it been settled? Is there a fatwa, David? Do you know about, do jihadis get the virgins if they get caught?
Yeah, I don't know, because you got it if you we know what happens if you die while waging jihad and so on. But it's like, what if you just make an idiot out of yourself, and then people are like, what an idiot.
Exactly. Do you get 36 virgins? 18? 9? Depending on how far you get in the plot? Do you get none because no infidels were killed?
Yeah, there was a scene in Mad Max Fury Road where you had the boss of everyone, the evil cult crime lord and stuff like that, and another guy says, "Hey, I know how to get on there, and I can go and take these guys out." And he says, "If you do it, I will personally carry you through the gates of Valhalla." The guy jumps over there and falls, and the guy goes, "Mediocre." But I think that's going to be Allah's reaction to these guys. Oh, Allah, but I tried. I got locked up, but I tried. Mediocre.
Yes, he talks just.
Tell you what, I'll give you half your virgins. Deal. That's all you're getting. Half.
36. So halfway through eternity, you've run out, and you're out of luck. Then you just got to go over to the bar and content yourself with massive drinking from the ever-flowing streams. Anyway, all right. This is a terrible story, but a very interesting story, David, I gotta say. There's so many interesting things to this story, David. This is Ilyas Safovich Safiullin. That's his name.
Sounds like someone out of a Tolstoy novel.
Well, yeah, he's a Russian. He's actually a Crimean Tatar. He's a Tatar, but not necessarily Crimean. I have this phrase Crimean Tatar in my head. Anyway, Ilyas Safovich Safiullin is a martyr, a Christian martyr, a real martyr. He is a convert from Islam to Christianity who was just murdered in his church in Moscow. Let's see, the Church of the All-Merciful Savior on Novoslobodskaya Street in Moscow. And interesting, his name is Safiullin, the Sword of Allah. But he converted to Christianity, and he was active in his church. You see him here. He's carrying an icon of the Blessed Mother. That was cut off in the picture, but in any case, he's clearly participating in the worship, and he was murdered by a Muslim whose name is Timur Kasimovich Kaitov, who is an Uzbek Tatar. All right, and so what happened was, according to the Russian news reports, David, this guy, let me get his name again here, Kaitov, Timur Kaitov. He, according to a Russian news source, he always treated his family with love and helped those in need, but he also had a mental illness. And recently he forgot to take his pills. Okay? So he told his wife that he had received a message from above and ran off. Where he ran was to the Church of the All-Merciful Savior on I just wanted to try it again. Novoslobodskaya Street. All right?
You got to say it like Novoslobodskaya, and then it sounds just more Russian.
That's good. Yes. Yes. Neat. Anyway, he gets there, and he tied Ilyas's hands. That is, he encountered Ilya Savovich Safiullin, and he tied him up, tied his hands. Then he slit his throat and stabbed him multiple times. Then he ran around the church looking for a priest, as Father Andrei Nadir Yakubov, is also an Orthodox Tatar. And he was running around with an icon he had taken from the man he had just murdered, and according to news reports, was shouting religious slogans.
I wonder what those were.
Yeah, no idea there. That's a tough one. But anyway,
all hail Joseph Smith. All hail Joseph Smith. Something like that.
That must be it. But my question to you, David, is: isn't it a remarkable coincidence that this guy he's mentally ill and he goes off his medication, and when he goes off his medication, what he does is he says he's got a message from above. He runs into a church. He encounters a convert from Islam to Christianity and slits his throat while shouting religious slogans.
Lots of coincidences, Robert.
What an amazing coincidence that his mental illness would take this form, is it not?
And I mean, don't we see this pretty much every week where some mentally ill person just happens to do exactly what the Quran and the Hadith command him to do?
Precisely.
And then everyone's confused. Isn't it weird that this person, and so all these, Robert, I've been around some mentally ill people. In fact, I've been a mentally ill person. Some say I'm still a mentally ill person. But here's the thing.
Yes.
I've actually been in mental hospitals. The guys are pretty hard to figure out because they're mentally ill and they just do weird, random things, and they're all different from each other. Isn't it weird that there's this entire category of mentally ill people whose behavior is completely predictable because they keep doing the exact same things over and over again, and it just happens to be exactly what they're commanded to do in the Quran and the Hadith? Isn't that weird? It's like weird.
It's remarkable. It's astonishing. And really, yeah.
Oh, I just wanted to point out, because while you were talking about this story, I was thinking, how did I not hear any of this? So I started looking it up. So I went to your site. I found it. Mm-hmm. Whoever is running Tommy Robinson's account has shared this story. Other than that, it's on orthochristian.com.
Yeah, that's where I got it.
Yeah, it's on orthochristian.com and nowhere else. Nowhere else. Just think, Robert. if this had been a Christian, even a mentally ill Christian, running into a mosque and killing someone while screaming, "All hail Robert Spencer," what do you think the odds would be that they'd actually toss the blame on whatever slogans this guy is talking about and say, "We need to get to the bottom of this and investigate this"?
Well, that would be massive headlines, and there would be incredible attention given to it, and a massive investigation immediately.
Yeah. And you would still be hearing about this 15 years from now when you're speaking at some place, and they would say, "Oh, but that guy was yelling this." It's just fascinating to me. You can have a million jihadis all doing the exact same thing for the exact same reason, screaming Allahu Akbar, and even giving manifestos about exactly why they did, and every time it will be dismissed, and they will just be called mentally ill. But yeah, if it was in the opposite direction, you could have a complete, absolute lunatic with no connection to reality and no connection to whatever he's yelling, and they would somehow pin it on somebody and use it forever.
So I got to emphasize, for those of you who might not know, everything about this man's behavior was in accord with Islam. Islam has a death penalty for apostasy, and he killed a man who had left Islam. He did it by slitting his throat, and Islam says, when you meet the unbelievers, strike the necks. That's Quran 47:4. And he was yelling religious slogans, as the Russian press says. That's almost certainly Allahu Akbar, Allah is greater, which is a thing you are supposed to say in the middle of a jihad attack to strike terror in the enemies of Allah. So there you go. This is someone that we should all be grateful for and strive to emulate in his courage. And may this martyr, Ilyas Savovich, pray for us.
And may he inspire many more to follow in his steps of leaving Islam.
Indeed.
And heading to church.
Exactly. All right, let's see what else we got here, David. Well, there's so much, I hardly know where to begin. I guess
it's pretty much that's life if you're reporting on jihad.
Yes. I guess the big story for the Stupid Infidels section of our program is that Hamas has suddenly tacitly acknowledged that it was lying all along about its casualty figures. And those, of course, were the casualty figures that went all around the world and made people say that Israel was committing genocide. And Hamas had claimed that thousands of people, tens of thousands of people were killed, and that 70% were women and children. Now, however, Hamas has quietly removed the names of thousands of Palestinians it claimed were killed, and now it says that 72% of the fatalities were men between the ages of 13 and 55. Why? Surely, why would they? They must have made a mistake, right? Hamas wouldn't lie to us, would they?
No, of course not. Have you? What person of an Islamic background have you ever known to lie, Robert? Come on.
Yes, indeed, you're right. They always tell the truth.
Yeah, it's not like they believe in a prophet who said war is deceit.
Oh no, oh no. It's amazing how there's total indifference about that in the West. And from policymakers, from foreign policy experts, people who are going over to deal with the conflict in Israel, they don't have any idea about war is deceit or its implications.
No, and the additional problem is no one ever learns from what happens. In other words, there's another if there's another war with Hamas in the near future and Hamas starts reporting figures, the journalists will continue mindlessly reporting those figures again.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. They could lie 1,000 times in a row. It would still nevertheless be completely Islamophobic not to believe them the next time they lie.
Yep, that's right. No lessons will ever be learned. That's just the way it is. Speaking of no lessons ever being learned, this is a picture from Eid al-Fitr in a new mosque.
Did you say Adolf Hitler?
Would I say that? Eid al-Fitr, the end of Ramadan, celebration of the end of Ramadan, in a new mosque in Newfoundland.
I thought it was going to be an invasion of Poland.
An invasion of Poland. Oh, I see. Adolf Hitler.
Adolf.
Yeah. Adolf Hitler. Newfoundland, they have this brand new mosque, and 6,000 people were in attendance for prayers on Eid al-Fitr. And the place they were in attendance at, if you look at it, you can tell. It used to be Mary Queen of Peace Catholic Church. And that looks just like the kind of aggressively ugly Roman Catholic churches that were built in the 1960s and 70s. Brutalist architecture and so on. And so now it's a mosque. And everybody's happy about that. The Roman Catholic Diocese says that it's a wonderful thing that it's a mosque because, they don't want it to be a Walmart or something, which is actually what the building looks more like. But they think that it's a wonderful thing to sell a building they're not going to be using any longer to other people of faith. Now, David, what do you think? Is this really the wonderful thing that they are saying that it is?
What would these Muslims be praying in this place? And I'm wondering if this were a Walmart, if the same prayers would be taking place. But last time I checked, Muslims would be praying there multiple times per day. Don't make us like the Jews or Christians.
Indeed. That's in the Fatiha, the most common prayer in Islam, recited 17 times a day by somebody who observes the 5 daily prayers. And so you are praying to Allah not to be like those who have earned Allah's anger or those who've gone astray. And those who've earned Allah's anger are the Jews, and those who've gone astray are the Christians. And so the Christians have sold to the Muslims this building where every day, 17 times, the Muslims pray not to be like the Christians. And the Christians are sitting back and thinking, isn't this nice that we have a new mosque in town?
Yeah, it's a microcosm of what's going on in the West in general. Isn't this great? Isn't this great? Isn't this great? Give them more, give them more, give them more, give them more. And not realizing how they're interpreting it, because that's the other thing. If a Walmart or something purchased that area, the Walmart would not be thinking, ha ha ha, you see, this is why we're taking over the world. Although they might, it is Walmart. But in Islam, it's, you see, we've taken over another church. This is what Allah commanded. We're taking it all until religion is all for Allah. These giant morons just fell for it, and now we're taking more, and they're not getting it back. That's what they're thinking.
Precisely so. And let's just emphasize one other thing about this. Why would it be so that the Muslims in Newfoundland would rather buy a Catholic church, as ugly a building as it is, rather than build a mosque new on a place, on a vacant lot or something?
Because it's simultaneously like a symbol of their victory. It's the reason they wanted. They had to take the Kaaba. It's the reason they had to take Hagia Sophia. It's the reason they cheered all this time whenever they would take over a Hindu temple. And as you point out in your book, History of Jihad, they would take the idols and smash them and sprinkle them around the place so they could walk on them as they're going in and out. Why build something when it becomes a symbol of your victory over the non-Muslims? They much prefer that.
Yep. And Allahu Akbar means Allah is greater than your God, greater than your religion. So now the Muslims in Newfoundland have a monument to the superiority of their religion. The Catholic Church gave way and is no longer there, and now it's a mosque. Islam is superior and victorious. And that's the idea, but nobody gets this. Nobody realizes what's going on. And meanwhile, I got more in terms of, speaking of the nobody realizes what's going on department, that aspect of our show. Let's talk about Epic City a little bit. Yes. And Epic City, for those who, well, can you fill us in, David, or should I?
You would have. I haven't really followed it. I saw the video by Yasser Qadi when he was advertising and stuff, and I was thinking, did these dorks really just call it Epic City? Like they're gonna, like, who's this meant for? Like 14-year-olds, guys, come to Epic City. It's just come help us build. It's just like Minecraft. We could build Epic City. It's like, seriously?
Well, it's from East Plano Islamic Center, Epic. See? And so East Plano.
Oh gosh, you just made it make sense. I was like, this is the dumbest thing. Now they're obviously thinking of both. They're obviously thinking,
Oh, yeah.
okay, East Plano Islamic Center. Hey, that's epic. Our initials are epic. So okay, that's okay. I'm gonna give him that one. It's a good little name then.
Yes. And so Epic City is supposed to be essentially a Sharia enclave in Plano, Texas, or East Plano, Texas, and only Muslims are going to live there. Islamic law going to be enforced, and of course, local officials are totally clueless, and so they've been going along with this all this time. And the Amy Meck, the great researcher, has just she's been keeping on top of this and has been publishing updates about it as more becomes known. And she just had a story that I picked up at Jihad Watch as well about a retired police lieutenant in the area who just revealed this is nothing new. They've actually been operating for 12 years. There's been a Sharia enclave in this area. But now they're just so confident that they are expanding it and advertising it openly. And the picture that I've had up here, this is kind of wild too. The picture is a picture of a big, let me see, it's a home that is part of Epic City. And it's a very large home, and I do not know why it has two separate front doors, but it does. I don't know what the significance of that is.
One for men, one for women, Robert.
You know, you're probably right, David. That's probably it right there. Because the police lieutenant says that it's one of the least desirable lots in the whole area. And this massive building was built there. That's the building that's on the left with the reddish roof. And it's a very large structure. And he says the house has all the hallmarks of a fortress and command post. The rear of the house looks a lot like an observation post and a shooting platform. And not only that, but what does it face? What is the white building with the grayish roof in the foreground? That is the Plano Police Academy, including their bomb squad, the SWAT team, and the department's pursuit training pad. And they've got now East Plano Islamic Center has this very strange large house in an undesirable area right next to the police academy. You would almost think that they're getting ready for something. I remember years ago, I was speaking in Las Vegas. It was kind of, I always thought it was odd. There were, back 10, 15 years ago, there were several conferences about jihad in Las Vegas. And so I went there a few times. And one time they were talking, somebody else who was speaking explained that the Las Vegas International Airport flight path goes right over a mosque that's built right outside the Las Vegas airport. And when they came before the city council people said, what's the big deal? It's just a church. And so now they have this flight, this mosque right there. And the guy that invited me, we went for a drive, and we went by this other mosque. And he said, watch what happens when I pull in. So we pull into the parking lot. There was nobody there. And as soon as we got in there, a car came out of nowhere and started following us. And then he pointed, the guy I was with pointed to the building, and this camera started tracking where our car was going. And he noted that there were no windows on the first floor, and on the second floor were slit turret windows as if you were ready for a siege. And I was reminded of all this by this business in East Plano and this strange building. Surely that nothing untoward is going on, though, right? It would just be Islamophobic to suspect anything.
Yeah, it's weird when when I hear about Epic City and hey, we're gonna have our own little city for Muslims and so on. Seems obvious why they would want to do that. They want to make a Sharia compliant pocket where they can always keep track of their daughters and what they're doing and what they're wearing and so on, and not have any outside influences influencing their sons and their daughters, so they can carry on their conditioning without interference. But it would make sense if simultaneously they're preparing for the future. That this is the time where that's on their mind, when they're thinking about the avalanche of apostasy and so on. They're realizing we can't just continue losing people to other viewpoints and so on. So we have to do something, and we have to start escalating soon. So does make sense. Does make sense.
There you go. So, I don't know. I'm not saying that maybe all this, there's a perfectly reasonable explanation. But I do know one other thing, David, and that is we ain't going to get it. If there is a perfectly reasonable explanation for this odd house with the two entrances and its location right by the police academy, or if it's just coincidence, nobody's going to say. All they will say is, you guys are Islamophobic. That's all we will get. All right, let's go to Pennsylvania. And the governor of Pennsylvania, Josh Shapiro, he just gave $5 million to Al-Aqsa Islamic Society in Philadelphia. Now, you got to wonder, I wonder, does Josh Shapiro ordinarily give out millions of dollars to religious institutions? Is that even constitutional? Does he give millions of dollars to churches and synagogues? I got to wonder. But not only that, David, but the Al-Aqsa Islamic Society in Philly that now has this $5 million, they hosted an imam recently who preached that the Jews are the most vile of people.
Well, I mean, you mean they're preaching the Quran, Robert? Come on.
Yes, the Quran, chapter 98, verse 6. So Josh Shapiro, being a Jewish man himself, you would think he would be concerned about that and think, maybe I better not give $5 million to these folks. But no, that would be Islamophobic.
That would certainly be Islamophobic.
You don't want to be Islamophobic, David. That's above all.
I'm just going to lay this down as a rule. If you belong to a group and a Muslim group is screaming, these guys are the worst of creatures, or death to these people, or something like that, if you don't give those same people $5 million, you're an Islamophobe. We can have that as a rule.
Yeah. So there you go. You'll be governor of Pennsylvania in no time. Or would you prefer West Virginia?
Yeah, I would. But it is weird how people still think, if I just keep handing them things, their hearts will melt. If we hand them thousands of young girls, their hearts will melt. If we hand them piles of money, their hearts will melt. If we give them entire cities, their hearts will eventually melt, and they'll stop hating us. And the more you hand them, the more contempt they have. They'll praise you. See, here's a good one. Here's a good person, but they have nothing but contempt for you. And they're like, oh, this guy's such an idiot.
Yep. That's where we are. All right, let's go to Africa, David. Some serious jihad here. We had, actually, before we go to Africa, let's go to the Middle East. In Iraq, we had a member of the Islamic State, ISIS, and he went on an axe rampage at an Assyrian Christian festival. Every year on April 1st, they don't celebrate April Fool's Day, the Assyrian Christians, but in Dohuk in northern Iraq, they have a procession and wave flags and wear colorful traditional clothes and so on. And this man who is in the picture there, having been attacked by cops, he ran towards the crowd. According to the Daily Mail, he was chanting Islamic slogans.
Huh. Is that all they're going to report nowadays, Robert? Chanting Islamic slogans?
Yeah, I think
I,
so. I think they don't want to look Islamophobic by saying Allahu Akbar.
I have to say though, at least they're still saying Islamic slogans, because they could get even more general and say shouting religious slogans, or just shouting slogans,
Yeah,
or
I'm not sure.
shouting unnamed words.
Let me check, but I actually think that is what they said with the murder in Russia, and the martyrdom of Ilya Safovich Safiulin. Yeah, he was shouting some religious and political slogans. That's what the Russian press said. But the Daily Mail is a little better, saying that this guy in Iraq was chanting Islamic slogans as he brutally struck 3 people with an axe at the Assyrian Christian procession. So we have that, and then we go to, let's see here. Oh, I moved up, yes, because I wanted to find that that other story about Russia. But in any case, in Somalia, we have another story of resembling so many others like it. Fatima Hussein is a young woman, 30 years old, in Somalia, and she became a Christian. And she went to her family and said, I've become a Christian. And what do you think they did, David?
Something mean.
They beat her and threw her out, told her not to come back. And Ibrahim Suleiman, her husband, he started beating her. Oh, I'm sorry, no. It was her father who started beating her with sticks and threatening to kill her, and ultimately kicked her out of the house, chasing her away with a sharp sword. And he told her husband, Ibrahim Suleiman, to kill her if he sees her again. And so she has fled the area. These people must be misunderstanding Islam, am I right?
Yes, everyone keeps misunderstanding Islam in exactly the same way.
Mm-hmm. That's right. That's what happens. And so in Uganda, we have Ephraim Idube and Tefiro Mwanani. And they went to Iganga in Uganda to preach the gospel. I love these names, really. I should move there so I could say them all the time. And Tefiro Mwanani says Muslims came in a big number and started shouting while asking us questions why we were making noise and deeming their prophet to a lower position in their holy month of Ramadan. Because they set up speakers and they were preaching, saying Jesus is the Son of God, that he alone will lead people to heaven. Muhammad was a prophet from nowhere. That's what they were saying. And so one of the Muslims grabbed their speaker, started to pull out the wiring, and hit it with a hammer, while other Muslims went and beat the evangelists. And then Wanani says, one, identified as Bruhan Isabirye, went and picked up a panga, which is a long Somali sword, in a nearby butcher shop and started cutting us. Many people, including Christians, came to rescue us, picked the panga from his hand. Though it was a bit late, we had bled too much, but we thank God that immediate help came and we were rushed to the hospital. They're just preaching. Surely that's not against the law in Somalia, is it?
I do love the he's a prophet from nowhere.
There you go.
I'm gonna steal that one. I'm gonna steal that, guys. Just yes, it's a white guy stealing something from Africa, but I think they're gonna be okay with that.
Yes, I'm sure they wouldn't mind. In Nigeria, we have more terrible stories, as we always do in Nigeria. In one, we have, it's interesting to note that there was a massacre, a huge massacre in the Bokos local government area of Plateau State. And last I saw, on April 5th, the death toll had risen to 52. And the Nigerian news outlet Channels TV noted that the attack happened in an area where 200 people were killed by jihadis during the Christmas celebrations in 2023. However, the attackers in this case were only identified as bandits and gunmen. And this is part of a general reticence that the Nigerian press has begun to pursue, that they don't call jihadis. But I have contacts in Nigeria, and I asked them, and they said, yeah, these are jihadis, absolutely. But now it looks as if the Nigerian media is following the Western media in being afraid to identify them as what they are.
And I mean, you could have Muhammad himself around today, right? Screaming Allahu Akbar. What would he be doing? Going around living as a caravan robber, robbing and killing, robbing and killing, robbing and killing. If it was reported, what would they say? A robber, you know, a band of robbers, band of caravan robbers attacked and killed a bunch of people.
Absolutely. It would be Islamophobic to say anything else. So also we have in another area, 11 Christians murdered in a nighttime raid, including a pregnant woman, her husband, and a 10-year-old girl. And the gunmen who were identified in this report as Fulani jihadis, they attacked without warning a funeral while the mourners were gathered to pay their respect to an 87-year-old leader of the community who had died. And the jihadis showed up, started killing people, killed 11 people. So that is part of their efforts to strike terror in the enemies of Allah. Meanwhile, David, in Indonesia, we had a story that we see very often over there, that officials in the East Borneo province refused to approve construction of a church building, even though the congregation had met all the requirements for a permit. Now, why would they do that?
Well, under Sharia, you're not building any new places. You're not even allowed to repair your churches that are damaged. If you get a hole in a roof or something like that, you're not allowed to repair it. The idea is they want your structures constantly wearing down, like they want your religion and your people constantly wearing down, becoming weaker and weaker until they take it over. And even if you're not under Sharia, that's still the goal. You want to work towards that situation.
So building a new church, it's forbidden. It's not allowed in Islamic law. So, well, there you go. Meanwhile, we had yet another story out of India that is unfortunately familiar. In Manipur, a Muslim youth. Now, I thought it was interesting, David, that this was a Muslim youth. I don't know if you heard about this, but this is very interesting. Muhammad Imran, a young man from the Meitei Pangal community, burned a copy of the Quran and shared a video on social media, burning a copy of the Quran. And whereupon he was actually lynched. He was murdered by a Muslim mob in that area. But I thought that was remarkable. A young Muslim, burning a copy of the Quran. What do you think that was all about?
Gosh, could be all kinds of things. Could be a mental issue, could be a suicide by burning the Quran, could be he's actually an ex-Muslim. It's estimated that around 8% of people who are counted as Muslims in Muslim countries are closet atheists or something else. So, yeah, all kinds of possibilities there.
Indeed. But I think that it's likely, whatever else may be going on, that he doesn't like the book. And he's probably quite familiar with it. And he recognizes how dangerous it can be for individuals and communities. I don't know, but I suspect that that's very likely. Meanwhile, let's see. Let's go to the BBC. Always good for some laughs. And this is Ahmed Alagha. And you can see there, this is a screenshot from one of his reports on BBC News. And Ahmed Alagha is an Arabic journalist. He's a journalist for BBC Arabic. And he has described the Jews as devils. And he's even said Israelis are not human beings. The Israeli occupation is the embodiment of filth, the unrivaled swamp of wickedness. As for the Jews, they are the devils of the hypocrites. So they're not just hypocrites, they're the devils of the hypocrites. That's bad. You thought being a hypocrite was bad. Being a devil of the hypocrite, that's worse. And as we know, he says, the Israelis are not human beings to begin with. Rather, they are not even beasts. Perhaps they belong to a race for which no description can capture the extent of their lust and sadism. That's BBC Arabic for you.
This guy's sounding an awful lot like the Quran, Robert.
He is.
This guy's the walking Quran right here. That should be the BBC headline. Walking Quran talks about Jews.
Although he goes beyond when he says that they are not even beasts, because of course the Quran says it transformed them to apes and pigs, and then we have the various hadith where they're mice and rats and what else? All these
lizards. Muhammad is worried about about eating lizard because he thought it might be a Jew that Allah turned into a lizard.
Yep. So this is just the kind of guy the BBC wants. Meanwhile, on the other side of the coin in Britain, you probably have heard about this. That's Lucy Connolly and her family. And Lucy Connolly is a British woman who is in prison right now. And she is in prison right now because during the demonstrations and protests after a jihadi murdered 3 little English girls, and there were protests against mass migration all over Britain, Lucy Connolly wrote on her social media on X, "Mass deportation now. Set fire to all the effing hotels full of these people." She didn't say people. "For all I care. While you're at it, take the treacherous government and politicians with them. I feel physically sick knowing what these families will now have to endure. If that makes me racist, so be it." Okay, so she took her dog for a walk. She thought about it. She calmed down. She thought maybe that was a little over the top. She went back and took the post down. But that was not good enough. It was up for about 4 hours. And so, in less than 4 hours, she was arrested. She was denied bail. And she is still in prison today. Meanwhile, there are jihadis walking the streets in Britain after not being tried or being acquitted or being freed after token sentences for mass rapes and worse.
And there are people saying all kinds of things along those lines who haven't been charged at all. I mean, Ali Dawa says that he's working towards an Islamic State and that he's going to be eating popcorn as he watches ex-Muslims being put to death. And so you've got that. You've got Muhammad Hijab saying that Western women who criticize Islam are fantasizing about being conquered and taken as war booty and so on, so they can be raped by their captors and stuff like that. So they say, so you're talking about what that woman said. And I said, oh, yep, that's too far. That is too messed up. But then you went on to say that she goes and takes it down. So she realized, okay, I was really enraged and I shouldn't have said that. I'm going to take it down. No mercy for her. But all she would have to do is say, all she would have to do is reverse it and say, actually, I'm a Muslim and I want to burn this. I want to burn churches to the ground and destroy this entire place and subjugate the entire land to the religion of Islam and want to see all these kuffar brutally murdered and so on. And she would be totally fine. They wouldn't even look twice at her.
Yep. Because I actually have an example of just that. This is a very charming fellow. This is
Real
Haroon.
Winner. Definitely a winner.
Yep. This is Haroon.
Ladies and gentlemen, I give you the product of 40 generations of first cousin marriage.
There he is, Haroon Aswat. And Haroon Aswat is a convicted Al-Qaeda terrorist in the UK. All right? And he has been termed, excuse me, he's been called a threat to national security. He's a Excuse me. He's a dangerous guy. He helped to set up a Al Qaeda training camp with you remember Abu Hamza, the guy with the hooks for hands? He's goodness.
Right.
He's in prison for setting up an Al Qaeda training camp in Oregon, and Harun Aswat helped him do that. And Harun Aswat actually said, "I am a terrorist." When they were trying to rehabilitate and de-radicalize him, he said, "No, I don't buy any of that. I'm a terrorist." All right? And so there was a psychiatrist, because of course they decided he was mentally ill since they don't admit there's any jihad. And so the psychiatrist ruled that there remains a risk of Islamic violent extremism from Harun Aswat. He was deemed an ongoing risk to national security, and he was freed. He's walking the streets, ladies and gentlemen, because it would, of course, be Islamophobic to keep him in prison after he served a little portion of his sentence.
And Robert, what are the odds that this guy's gonna do something in the future?
I think they're about 100%.
Yeah, I would think close to 100%, talking 95 to 98, depending on what else happens in his life.
He might be prevented from doing something. He might be diverted, but he's unlikely to have a change of heart so that he decides that killing infidels is not something he wants to pursue.
No, it
But
doesn't
he's
matter.
out.
They got the woman. They got the woman who said something mean about Muslims, so that's what matters.
He's out, but Lucy Connolly is still in prison. All right, so Keir Starmer. We all know Keir Starmer. There he is.
Keir, there he is.
Yes. He, amid all this, he recently released a video.
Wait, hang on. Here's a picture of two-tier Keir, just dreaming about how Muslims are going to celebrate him for all the future.
Yeah, well, you know, I needed to get a screenshot for the Jihad Watch front page, and I caught that one with his eyes closed, and I thought, oh, that's perfect. I'll just go with that. Ordinarily, I might have just tried again to get another one, but in any case, Keir Starmer, he says that he claims women in hijabs are afraid to get on buses because of Islamophobia, and Muslim families are attacked when they leave mosques. Islamophobia is increasing every day in England. I don't think that's true, David. What do you think?
No, it's Robert. I've been to the UK multiple times. Not so much anymore. Not allowed, like you. But every time I went there, it was like an endless sea of burqas. I'd be in London, and it's just endless burqas everywhere. But somehow, it's just always the victim. And even if they heard one person anywhere in the UK, one Muslim simply says, "Yes, Keir, we're scared," because they're trained to portray themselves as victims. We're so scared. We're so unsafe. That's what the problem is. If you had Muslims who are actually in danger, I would be in favor of the government protecting them totally. But what you see is any Muslim woman can say, "Oh, yes, we're victims," and the government is ready to rush into action. But Robert, I see videos pretty much every day of women posting that they can't even walk down the streets in London anymore without being harassed. I'm talking about non-Muslim women, and they're getting harassed by Muslim men. And they say they can't even walk out the store and go one stop down on the train. They'll describe it. They'll be like, as soon as I walk out, guy comes up, puts his hand on me. As soon as I get to the train station, guys are coming up, groping me. I'm on the train. Guys are groping me. We know why it is. The Quran says that you're supposed to cover yourself so that you be not molested, which ends up being an invitation to Muslim men. She's not covering herself. Therefore, she's begging you to molest her.
Exactly.
And so the thing is, if there were anything remotely resembling fairness or equality or equal concern. Hey, here's a Muslim woman. She doesn't feel comfortable. Therefore, let's try and deal with whatever's making her feel uncomfortable. But therefore, let's also make sure that whatever's causing these people over here to feel uncomfortable, these non-Muslims, let's make sure we deal with that. but they won't. If you're a non-Muslim, they could be gang raping you. They won't. They just don't care. They'll. In fact, if your dad comes and tries to rescue you because you're a 12-year-old girl, they will arrest your dad for interfering in that sort of thing. But if you're a Muslim woman, you just say, I feel so unsafe. They're ready to send in the entire military to crack down on all the Islamophobes who made you so uncomfortable. It's just that. I mean, it's just one massive island of hypocrisy.
Yep. And here's some more. This is Hakan Barak. And Hakan Barak is from Newport in the UK.
He also, you can tell, shaved right down the middle of his unibrow. See that? You can tell. See, that's trimmed. That's a razor. That's clippers right there.
Yeah, because otherwise it wouldn't be squared off if it just stopped right there. He's also got curiously reddened eyes, and around his eyes, curiously reddened eyelids. I don't know what that's all about. Maybe he was weeping at his arrest, but I kind of doubt it. But he's actually been jailed for nearly 4 years for 5 offenses regarding jihad plotting in the UK. So here he is. He's an Islamic jihad terrorist. He's plotting massacres in the UK. 5 separate counts, and he gets nearly 4 years in prison, which means he'll probably serve around 2, and then he'll be out, and by then he'll be completely reformed, will he not? And he'll be a loyal, stable, productive member of English society.
Yeah, he won't be an even more radicalized jihadi at all. Not with all those years of prison dawah and hanging out with all the other guys who are locked up for terrorist offenses.
Yeah, that'll make him completely benign.
Yeah, guys, I want to point out, as someone who's been locked up, it's an ongoing issue. You take this guy, just in general, I'm not even talking about Islam. You take some young guy who, let's say, breaks into a place and steals something, and then you want to stick him in prison. And so there is this issue of what do? You're taking a young guy and sticking him in a big building with murderers, robbers, rapists, and everything, and then saying, okay, and after 2 years, he's going to come out a better person. You have to think about things like that. Like what steps can we take to make sure he actually comes out a better person and not a worse person because we're putting him in an environment with a ton of criminals, right? So you do have issues like that. In Islam, that problem is massively amplified. Because, hey, we're taking this guy who's done this and this and this and that, but we're going to put him in a big building with a bunch of jihadis, like-minded jihadis, and so on, and they're going to sit there and come up with all sorts of plans about how to terrorize us in the future and how they can build an army for Allah. And you better figure out. Keep in mind, there are like the easiest ways on the planet of dealing with that. You just separate the Muslim population from the non-Muslim population in prison. That way they can't. That way you can't have them, forcibly converting people and then radicalizing them and so on. And if it's actual jihadis, sorry, you're all in separate cells for now. And no, you don't get to communicate. And you just have to be harder on these guys so they can't do it, but they won't because everything I just said is Islamophobic.
Mm-hmm.
So they won't do it. Any of it.
All right, let me see. This is, let me get his name here. Mohammed Hisham Medjoub. Medjoub, yeah. And he is on trial in Paris for an attack in May 2019. So it took 6 years, to get him on trial. And Mohammed Medjoub is now on trial because he planted a homemade bomb in a brown bag in front of a bakery. And the bomb was filled with metal projectiles. It went off and injured about 15 people, including a 10-year-old girl. When he was speaking to investigators, he admitted that he wanted to sow terror. And he wanted to sow terror so that the right wing would win the elections, and that would lead, he said, to a civil war in France. And he said if his bomb didn't kill anyone, it was just a coincidence. He really wanted to kill people. And he, on trial this past week, he said to the prosecutor, "You don't impress me. You don't scare anyone. As a Muslim, an Arab, and especially an Algerian, I have no moral lessons to receive from the French." As a Muslim, an Arab, and an Algerian, I have no moral lessons to receive from the French. Why does he think he's morally superior when he put a bomb outside a bakery and injured 15 people?
Well, Surah 3, verse 110 says, Muslims are the best of peoples ever raised up for mankind. Jews and Christians are the worst of creatures. And even though Jews and Christians are the worst of creatures, we're actually, we're the people of the book. We're actually better. And so then, than some of the, the polytheists and so on. So according to his religion, he's absolutely correct. Although, you know what, Robert, if I were the media, see, the media needs to start being a little smarter, right? They always try to downplay and say, oh, these guys have mental health issues or something like that. I would take things up a notch if I were the journalists. I mean, the journalists who always want to whitewash Islam. I would post a picture of that guy and be like, notice this man has no zabiba.
You're right. Clean forehead.
I see zero zabiba. A clean forehead is a sign of a dirty Muslim, and therefore you cannot.
That's very good.
You cannot hold Islam accountable. You cannot hold Islam accountable for anything if the perpetrator had zero zabiba.
But the man said, as a Muslim, I have no moral lessons to learn from the French.
Your mouth says you're a Muslim, but your lack of zabiba says the opposite. Who are we to believe?
Well, maybe he'll get some jail time to bang his head on the floor and work on his zabiba. All right, some super chats here. Philip Daniel says, yesterday I encountered an Irish anti-Semite, IRL, is that Ireland or something else, in real life, who said Israel is not a real country because it didn't exist at the time of the Irish potato famine. Aye, that's when all of the real countries came into being, when the Irish had their potato famine.
Anything that didn't exist at the time of the Irish potato famine never happened.
That's right. Everything came into being ex nihilo at the time of the famine. EANDM Creation says, advice, Robert, please consider a 30 or 60 second countdown so YouTube has time to send out the alerts when you go live so we don't miss the poem. Does YouTube send alerts? I really didn't know that. I've heard people say they got no alert. And so I thought I was banned from that sort of thing. Let me know if you get alerts, but you get them 30 or 60 seconds into the show, then yeah, I'll hang around and make small talk till we get to that point. But I really
that is easier than the because some people actually put like a 30 second or 60 second little intro countdown or song or something like that. But yeah, we could just make sure we chit chat for a few seconds at the beginning and then but now it's time for the poem, like that.
Yeah. Or I could sing Hatun's song. Allah is a false god, a false god, a false god. Allah is a false god, a false god. Yeah, I love that song. It's great.
Classic.
All right. Joshua Wooden says, Google is pro-Islam as they answer things not according to evidence, but presuppose Islamic answers. Like Surah 319 doesn't explicitly name Torah and Gospel. Yeah, Google is pro-Islam, so all of them are. Even Grok.
Keep in mind that as far as Google being sort of pro-Islam or something like that, that happens in two ways. So one, you can actually have the programmers who are controlling the system and stuff like that. They can steer it in certain directions, and it can be multiple people doing that. It could be actual Muslims working there and so on. It could be leftists working there. It can be anyone who's trying not to be an Islamophobe, trying to get Google to give non-Islamophobic answers and so on. But also, Google has an algorithm and it tries to give people what they're looking for, right? And so you always have Muslims flooding Google looking, put it this way, they sort of invent their own evidence for Islam by doing this. Like there was that guy, a totally random guy. He was a scientist, not a historian, but Michael Hart. His dad had a publishing company, and he got his dad to publish his list of the 100 most influential people in history, and he put Muhammad number one, and he did that because he came up with different categories where you could be a huge influence, and Muhammad was a huge influence in two areas, in the realm of politics because of his political ideology and in the religious realm. So he said, hey, here's a guy who's massively influential in two domains, therefore I'll call him number one. And Muslims then put this out there as he came up with a list of the greatest men of all time, and Muhammad is number one. He wasn't saying greatest; he was saying most influential. Hitler was on his list, right? Genghis Khan was on his list. Darwin's on his list. He had all kinds of people on his list that Muslims would, well, in the case of Hitler, I guess they would agree with it, but lots of Muslims would not agree with lots of people on the list. But yeah, so he's just saying these are the most influential people. It's from one guy who's not a historian, who got his book published by his dad. And yet, if you look up who's the greatest man in history, that will pop up. Why? Because Muslims are the ones who search Google looking for confirmation that Muhammad is the greatest man. And they're looking for that. They're looking for his list because all their Dawah guys, Ahmed Deedat, Zakir Naik, they all put this guy forward. You see, and this is the greatest historian in the West. And he says that Muhammad is the greatest man of all time. Look, even the non-Muslims see this. And so, but guess what? The algorithm eventually figures out when people are searching for who's the greatest man of all time, they're ultimately looking for Michael Hart's list, and it'll just pop up first. And they'll say, look, this is Google. This is Google affirming that Muhammad is the greatest man of all time. And it's just like, no, you're the guys who do that. Other people have a kind of confidence in their beliefs that they don't have to constantly seek vindication from Google or something like that. But anyway, that's actually how it happens. So take some random thing that some random guy does that no one else would ever take serious. By the way, the guy's a white supremacist and white nationalist and so on. And he thinks that Arabs have massively lower IQs, and that's why they fell for Muhammad. But all that gets left out when they talk about Michael Hart being the great historian who confirmed that Muhammad is the greatest man of all time.
Also, though, it's true that Google is massively biased. I can't use it at all anymore. There have been times that I have been looking for an old story on Jihad Watch, and that's because I've got an awful lot of information at Jihad Watch. It goes back to 2003 every day, and there are many things that I've written. Sometimes I remember and I think, oh yeah, I had some references in there that I want to use again, and I try to find the old article. And if I put in even the exact title in Google, it will not show up because Jihad Watch is blacklisted from Google. And so if somebody picked it up, I can find it elsewhere, or if somebody mentions it. And sometimes that'll lead back to the original. But I have to use other means to find a thing on my own site. It just doesn't exist for Google.
Yep, Google's garbage.
Yep. All right, the Jewish ex-spy in the chat says, Robert, what is your analysis of the video of the Qatar-based International Union of Muslim Scholars calling for obligatory jihad against Israel, Jews, and Christians a couple of days ago? It was a little longer ago than that. I think I mentioned it on this show either last week or 2 weeks ago, but it is still circulating. And anyway, it's perfectly reasonable to be expected from that point of view because it's defensive jihad. They claim that Israel is invading Muslim lands. And according to Islamic theology, that kicks in defensive jihad, which is obligatory on every Muslim in the world. So it's really just standard Islamic theology.
Yeah, the interesting part for me was basically I'm looking at that thinking, and yet Muslims aren't going to go out and do it.
Yeah, a lot of them aren't.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Joshua Wooden says, brothers, do I mark Surah 319 as an Islamic dilemma example? Thaddeus, world's third biggest Islamophobe, said, the book usually refers to the Torah and Gospel.
Yeah, Joshua. Yeah, Joshua, that verse is about the Torah and the Gospel. It's not something it's kind of neutral in that it's talking about the book, but not saying that it is currently. There are lots of other Quran verses that are about this. But so anyway, yeah, as far as the Islamic Dilemma Project, we are kind of listing everything the Quran says about the previous scripture. So that is definitely something the Quran is saying about the previous scriptures. It's not affirming that they are still there are other verses that do. So anyway, you could have that verse written down as something that's mentioning the previous scriptures, but not something that is like affirming their current authority or something like that.
All right, we got Flipper. Wasn't Flipper a dolphin? Anyway, saw a video of Pakistani imams in Japan calling to turn Japan into an Islamic republic. Fortunately, Japan does not have birthright citizenship. No, but you're right. Japan, for the first time, we're seeing jihad attacks there because there is a significant Muslim presence there, and so That's going to work out in exactly the same way it works out everywhere else. Bo Rudder says, why did the feds take down Waco but not Epic City? What do you think, David?
Because one would be Islamophobic and one wouldn't be.
I think that's probably it.
Although I have to say,
yes.
I think it's more likely that they're going to do something about Epic City now than like 5 years ago.
Yes. Well, now that it's getting all this negative publicity, making them look bad, maybe they'll act. Mrs. Hijab X says, Assalamu alaikum, golden showers for everyone. Okay, thank you.
That is one of the things to wonder. I mean, Hijab's, he's got these secret mutta wives and so on. But the messages he sends us are like totally sick and perverted. And it's all about golden showers and this and that. It's like, gosh, can you imagine what he's into with these girls?
I wouldn't be in the least surprised.
Pretty creepy.
Flipper. There are many grape cases in Japan done by Kurdish and Pakistani men that go uncovered for political correctness. A Kurd raped 2 Japanese minors. Yes, so not surprising that it would play out in Japan exactly the same way as it does everywhere else. Peace be upon me says, God bless you, Robert and David, for mentioning the Assyrian incident. As an Assyrian Christian, we've been persecuted for thousands of years by Muslims. Yes, and as an Orthodox Christian from the Ottoman Empire, we are blood brothers. The Assyrians, the Armenians, and the Greeks, all the original inhabitants of Asia Minor. Flipper says, Robert, please speak out for the dolphins of Pakistan. Is this some?
That's why he's going to Flipper, huh?
Is this something going on about dolphins or something that I don't know about?
Yeah.
Okay.
They're having problems.
Oh yeah.
They're raping the dolphins.
Yeah.
It's an ongoing problem that
we talked about that some time ago. Yeah, incredible. Goodness.
Pretty creepy.
Yeah, I mean, well, of course, Ayatollah Khomeini, he speaks extensively in one of his legal manuals about the ways and means and the whys and wherefores of having sex with animals, so it's not really surprising. Rick Newton, I see the Kaffir King is doing well. God bless you. Yes, thank God. Thank you, Rick. Eileen Sloan, thank you. Learn so much every show. Eileen, thank you. I appreciate that because this show, we say so many of the things we have said before. And Edwin DaCosta, thank you very much. And that's about it, David. So here we are at the end of Jihad for the week. There's lots more Jihad, in fact. That's all at jihadwatch.org, and you can see it all there. And meanwhile, next week, I think I'm off speaking at a university, David, next week. So I don't know if I'll be on the show. Actually, I might be back. I think I'll be back by then. So actually, if you're free, we will have the show then. I think it's Monday I speak, if I recall correctly, and they're already in a tizzy at James Madison University in Virginia that this Islamophobe is coming to campus. It's such a terrible thing.
Okay, so yeah, you'll have to let me know. You'll have to let me know what happens, and I'll just hello, jihadis of the world. Yeah, hold off on the jihad until we find out whether there's going to be this week in jihad.
Yeah, I think
pause it. Just pause all the jihad. Okay.
I'm pretty sure we're going to have jihad next week. I believe I'm flying back Tuesday. Anyway, super chat from Tarun TAC. Yo, Robert, do you now believe that Muhammad is real? Why would I? So what's changed? Also, you both should debate on whether we should eat animal flesh or not. Why should we do that?
Because Tarun is obsessed with veganism and promoting it in all his super chats. That's all he cares about.
That don't have nothing to do with what we're talking about here, Tarun.
But Robert, think about the animals. What about the animals? That's what he always says.
Well, read Genesis, Tarun. It's
the animals. Rob, which part of the animals did you not understand, Robert?
Well, Christianity does not mandate veganism. Although this is the Lenten fast, and so actually, yes, I am a vegan right now, but I won't be after April 20th. So.
Yes, nothing but wheatgrass soup for Robert right now. But for you, Tarun, let me just say, if we're not supposed to eat animals, then why are they made out of meat?
Good point. Why are they so tasty?
Mm-hmm.
All right, I guess that you could make the same argument though. If Allah didn't want the Muslims to strike the necks of the infidels, why did He give them necks at all? QED.
Powerful point.
Thank
I'm gonna have a jihadi character say that at some point, some skit.
Yes.
He's in an interrogation. Why'd you do it? Why'd you strike his neck? Oh, why did Allah make them have necks if He didn't want me to strike them?
Exactly. Yeah, here he is again. Look at this. Your opinion on carnivore diet. Pro. I'm for it. All right. Anyway, so next week, yeah, I'm pretty sure we'll be here, but I will confirm with you. But I'm 99% certain I'm flying back Tuesday, so there's no reason not to have a show on Wednesday. And so God willing, we'll be back with more jihad. And until then, pray, hope, and don't worry.